Welcome back to Author Journey. My name is CJ Anaya. Today is all about character arcs, part 7. We are getting into the middle of the book. I'm super duper excited about that. Before we start, make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell and notification button so that you will be notified in case you really like these videos and you want to be notified. That would be awesome. Okay, so moving on. So we're going to be focusing on the second act, okay? In the last video, we discussed foreshadowing, the inciting incident, and that propels your character through the door and to the first plot point. Now for Audrey, that plot point is accepting a marriage of convenience. The second act, which is the middle, then becomes a series of progressions and fails for the plot. So progressions and setbacks. And it's a series of progressions and fails for the character arc as well. I want to point out real quick that your plot is different than a character arc. What you're doing is you're taking your character arc and you're weaving it into the plot. Now, if you do not know how to outline a plot for a book, just go to my video. It's how to outline a novel. It's going to give you the basic concept of how to do that, just a little blueprint for doing that. And if you take that and then combine it with this character arc series, it's really going to help you as you plot and plan your book, okay? So take a look at that if you haven't looked at that video already. The second act, the next 50%, tends to trip authors up. This is where we all get stuck, where maybe writer's block hits. We just don't know how to structure the middle. We can get then the beginning down. We know what the ending's going to be like. We just don't know how to take our character on that journey. So that has a lot to do with taking on the entire second act instead of breaking it in half and focusing on only the next 25%. So I told you guys I was going to break up the book into 4 parts. I'm very serious about that. It's the way that it works for me. I've always had a very hard time functioning with the 3-act structure because the second act is so big and I just got lost in it, got lost in the thick of it. So there are crucial beats or moments that need to happen within the first half of the second act that's leading up to that midpoint. So you've got the first half of the second act, you have the midpoint, and then you have the second half of your second act, okay? And we're only talking about the first half. We're going to talk about the midpoint and the second half in another video, but we need to focus on the important character beats that you need to weave into your plot in this next 25% of the book. So in this first half of the second act, your character is reacting to events. A lot of people in film will call this the reactionary stage. In plotting and formatting books or organizing books, we call it the reactionary stage as well. These events, this first plot point, your character is trying to get a handle on things, but it's very reactionary. It's almost as if the story is tugging them along and propelling them forward rather than them being in control. And that's because they're still operating under this lie and they're bumbling around and they're just not getting it right, okay? So it's pretty reactionary in nature. So the first beat that you want to include in this, and these do not have to go in order. This needs to happen before the midpoint, okay? Your character's lie becomes a weight around his or her neck. So you need to give them tools. You need to give them help. Your character is reacting to events around them and trying to solve problems with the same misconceptions they've always had, but they're in a situation that they've been trying to avoid. So moving forward with the same misconception is not working for them in the way that it used to. So if you're going to give them tools to overcome the lie, the main way that you'll see this happen is in the form of a guide or a mentor. People who pop into their lives and give them advice here and there. It could be someone very secondary. It could be a waitress at a restaurant who manages to say something really inspiring. But either way, they hold wisdom and a different point of view. And your character needs to start learning truths that will combat this lie through these tools. So for Audrey, these tools come from her mother and Asher. So her mother advises her to forget her vendetta and focus on her relationship with Asher. And then Asher's loving, self-sacrificing personality is enough to make Audrey question her lie, especially when he lives up to his promises and assists her with an altercation involving her ex-husband. So behaviors of other people, actions of other people can also be the tools that will influence your character's viewpoint and their misconception and this lie that they believe in. So it's not enough for her to change, but it's enough for her to question. And that's what we want in the first half of this book, or in the first half of this second act. They're reacting and they're questioning. They're seeing glimpses of how it could be different, but they're still pursuing their main objective, which could be completely wrong for them. Another thing you need to do, another beat that needs to be in this, in some place within this 25%, is you got to make it difficult for them to move forward while believing the lie. Your character's world has changed at the first plot point, but your character still hasn't evolved. So the world has changed, but there's no evolution from the character, and that causes a lot of conflict. They're trying to get what they want by operating the same way they always have, but now their behavior isn't getting them the results they're used to. The lie used to be your character's modus operandi, and now it's an obstacle. It keeps getting in the way. You need to create moments where this misguided belief, this lie, and even the behaviors surrounding it begins to have unfortunate consequences for them, even punishments internally and externally, okay? So Asher believes that his rich guy persona, the successful businessman that he is today, is what will win Audrey over. His plan to buy her a new car completely backfires when he learns that Audrey views a man's money as something that can be used to control her. So he has to take a step back and regroup a bit. He's still operating under this lie that he cannot be loved for himself. He can only be loved for a rich, successful businessman. And so the idea that this money, that this power that he has is viewed as something that could be controlling, he's not used to that because this world that Audrey is operated in is different from his. And his misconceptions, everything is different now. So he needs to prove his worth through his money and status, or he thinks he does, his need for it. It's not the way to win her heart. So now he's got to regroup a bit because it's like, oh, that backfired, didn't get what he wanted, and now he's a little concerned. Did I mess things up with her? Is that going to be a setback in getting her to love me? Another beat you need to include in this 25% is a moment where what your character wants is interfering with what he or she needs. So your character is still very focused on getting what they want because it's going to solve everything for them, okay? But now you're showing how this pursuit of what they want is really messing up what they're eventually going to truly need. Your character will still have some victories here and there, but it's not really getting them what they need. The victories are very shallow. Asher is finally married to Audrey, victory, just as he's always dreamed about, but she doesn't love him or even know who he really is, and that's a fail. He doesn't realize it until it's a little bit too late, but it's a huge fail. They're married, but she doesn't know the real him. His single-minded goal of getting her to love the successful businessman prevents him from being loved for who he is. If he continues down this path and never tells her the truth, he risks losing Audrey and the opportunity to be loved as Lawrence instead of Asher. The next beat that you need to have within this 25% is what would life be like without the lie? It won't be enough to convince them that their lie is all wrong, but it will be a glimpse into what is possible. When Audrey and Asher start to brainstorm ideas for how they met and fell in love, Audrey is taken in by the story they concoct. So for a brief moment, she wishes their love story was true. Now remember, this is all for appearance. So they have to put on a good show for the paparazzi, and they have to make sure that they're on the same page. They can't have different stories. So they're trying to brainstorm, make sure that their stories are consistent with one another. And she loves the idea of a healthy, functioning relationship with a man she can trust and depend on. She loves this love story that they're making up and creating for the media. She wants to believe in it. Then she reminds herself it's all a story for the press. But the way it made her feel for that brief moment changes her a bit. It alters her just a tiny bit. It plants a little seed and gives her a little hope. So she momentarily forgets that Asher could hurt her and considers the idea that Asher could love her and she could love him without any hurt or pain following in love's wake. Your character is trying very hard to reach his goal. It seems like he or she is closer than ever, but on a lot of levels, he is worse off than before. So this 25% is all about that pesky little lie still being in place as they try to move forward in this new world order that they're in, because they've decided to go on this journey. They've decided to do something that's contrary to this lie they believe in. So this first half explores their beliefs, their desires, and all the misguided ways in which they try to achieve their goals. So there will be surface victories, just like Asher is finally able to get the girl, in the sense that he's able to convince Audrey to marry him. But there's also deeper setbacks, because he's got her, but he doesn't really have her. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't truly love him for him. So if you can see that, it seems like they're accomplishing something, but it's really not what they need. So it's that all of this is eventually going to lead you to the midpoint of the book. Again, you're going to incorporate this with the actual plot of the book. So in the outline, how to outline a novel, when I bring you to this part, this 25%, I talk to you about progressions and setbacks, how there needs to be about 3 to 5 obstacles that you can brainstorm that are going to help your protagonist reach their want, reach their goal. And you're going to take those progressions and setbacks and take these points that I've given you and weave all of that together. So again, take a look at that video, because it's going to help you weave plot and character arc in a way that makes a little more sense. So you really have quite a bit to use and to outline. Once you have that outline down, it's so much easier to write to the next point and to flesh out all the scenes and to really know where you're going and what you're doing. So questions that you need to ask yourself as you work on this 25% of the book and outline and organize. How does your character react to the first plot point? That's going to be important. What tools will you give your character to help them overcome the lie? Minor character who can give aid and advice here and there, actions that surprise your character, actions of others that impress upon them, that maybe they need to change their thinking. How will your character use the lie to solve plot problems? And how will your character be punished for it? Again, I'm going to give you an example of this. Thor continues to, in that first Thor movie, he continues to be arrogant and bossy when with the police after his father banishes him to Earth. So he's still this arrogant, egotistical, I'm the prince, I'm going to be king, I'm going to rule Asgard. And that doesn't fly with this world that he's in. Nobody respects him, nobody knows him. For his efforts, he's just treated like a crazy person, like someone who's a threat. He's tasered, he's imprisoned, and he doesn't have his regular powers. He doesn't have his hammer, okay? So all of the ways that he behaved before, they don't work to solve his problem now, because it's what he's dealing with now is entirely different. He's still operating under this lie. I think that's a really good example and another way to illustrate how to implement this. So how do these failures or setbacks help your character slowly evolve in their thinking and their actions? You need to have real moments where that is shown, either in their, whatever they do, thinking, actions, beliefs, ideas. And you need to show this. Don't tell us this, show us. How will your character's pursuit of their goal lead them closer to what they want? And how will it lead them away from what they need? How does this new world they've stepped into provide them a glimpse of what life would be like without the lie? So all of these things are going to bring you to the midpoint, and we'll talk about the midpoint and the second half of the second act in the next video. But I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this helps you to not get stuck in the middle. This is a question I get asked constantly. Emails constantly. The first part of the book can be tricky to navigate, but nobody really gets stuck in the first part of the book. They always have ideas. It's just structuring it correctly is a bit of a challenge. What really nails people, what really hurts them is the middle. Everybody gets stuck in the middle. So this is here to help you figure out how you're supposed to structure this, what all needs to be in there, and certain things where they need to go, and hopefully that will help you. Please like the video if you thought it was helpful. Please comment, let me know what you're writing, what you're doing. If you have any questions in your writing, email me, comment here, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.